All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we'll be going through how to write a geography essay. As you have seen in the thumbnail, there were a lot of burgers being displayed in the thumbnail. So we will actually be exploring how is essay writing similar to actually cooking a burger. All right, so for the O levels as well as the N levels, you will be required to actually write an essay. So there will only be one essay question. For G3 students, you'll be required to write a 9-mark essay, and the topic will be about weather and climate. And in the N levels, you'll be required to write one essay question worth 6 marks, and the essay topic will be about weather and climate. So for both O and N levels, the topic for the essay will be about weather and climate. But the difference here is that for N levels, it will be worth 6 marks, and for the O levels, it will be worth 9 marks. All right, so firstly, what is an essay? I want you to imagine this. Let's say you get into an argument with your friend, and you want to convince your friend that you are right. However, you do not want to lose this friend. So you want to convince your friend that you are right, but you also want to convince your friend that whatever point that he or she has is not as important as compared to yours. So what can you do to actually do this? All right. So before we jump into essay writing, what I want you to note is this. You cannot simply just talk about your point and your opinion and then tell your friend, you are wrong. You just have to listen to me. What you need to do is that you will need to convince your readers that your chosen point is correct and that the other perspective is not as strong or is not as convincing as yours. So you need to do two things: convince that you are right, and then also convince that the other perspective or the alternative perspective is not as strong as your chosen argument. All right. So a real life example to illustrate this is in reference to, let's say, an argument about which is better, iPhones or Androids. So let's say you're on Team Apple and your friend is on Team Android. So let's say the argument goes like this. Your friend says that Android phones are much better than iPhones, and then you disagree that iPhones are much better. So simply saying that iPhones are much better is not enough. You will need to prove it. And that is what essay writing is like. It's proving an argument. All right. So let's say you disagree. So now you need an argument, right? So for example, an argument may be, you will say that iPhones are much better because their hardware or the way that iPhones are made is much more faster, much more efficient. Essentially, the quality is better. However, your friend then comes up with another argument about why Androids are much better. Your friend argues that Android phones are much better because there are many more apps available on the Android App Store as compared to the iPhone Play Store. Therefore, Androids are much better. So how do you actually prove that you are right, that iPhones are much better, and also convince your friend that having many apps is actually not that important after all? Okay, so then how do you convince your friend? So what I'm going to show you is basically what an essay will look like. So basically, you will tell me your stand. Do you agree or do you disagree that the Android phones are much better? So you will say that I disagree that Android phones are better than iPhones. And then you will need to provide an explanation on why you say so. For example, the hardware of iPhones is much more superior. They are of higher quality. Therefore, it allows iPhones to be faster and smoother as well. So then you will need to provide evidence. Was there any studies? Was there any articles that were produced that proves that iPhones are much faster than Android phones? So you will include this example. According to 500 tests done by 300 different studies, the iPhone outperforms Android phones 90% of the time in terms of speed. So this shows that iPhones are much faster as compared to Android phones. And then you will also need to consider your friend's point of view. Why is it that having more apps does not necessarily mean that a phone is better? So you can say that, for example, although Android phones do have more apps, the quality of the apps that are on the Android Play Store is not as good as the apps that are available on the Apple App Store. Therefore, you can even say that perhaps there were reports that mentioned that the apps on the Google Play Store or Android Play Store actually left people with viruses in their phones. So this will convince your friend that, hey, actually, Android has a lot of apps, but this does not mean that the phone is better. Having more apps can actually be more problematic, all right? Because the quality is not as good as those on the iPhone App Store. So what you have done is you have convinced with evidence that iPhones are much better, and you have also considered your friend's argument and provided a counter argument as to why they are not really right. So if you were to do this, your friend will definitely be convinced, and your friend will definitely want to buy an iPhone because you have proven that iPhones are much better than Androids. All right, so we generally know what an essay is all about now. We generally know what an essay is like right now, but what makes a geography essay a geography essay? A geography essay is not simply like an argument that you have on an everyday basis. It's slightly different, but the idea behind it is similar. All right, so let's say you receive this sample question in your O-levels or in your end of the year exam. Distance from the sea is the most important factor in influencing the temperature of locations. And then they ask you, how far do you agree with this statement? Support your answer with relevant examples. So based on this, you are given a statement, the one that is bolded here. And then you have to tell me, how far do you agree with this statement? Do you agree fully? Do you disagree with the statement? And then you will have to argue for this stand that you have already selected. All right, so let's start off with understanding the structure of a geography essay. This is where the burger will come in. I want you to think of an essay as a delicious, juicy cheeseburger. We all know that cheeseburgers have their essential components. If a burger doesn't have cheese, you cannot call it a cheeseburger. If you change the patty to perhaps a vegetable patty, it won't really be counted as a cheeseburger anymore. If you change the buns to a wrap, then it will be a beef wrap rather than a burger. So we know that in order to have a cheeseburger, there are certain ingredients that needs to be in the meal. Similar for a geography essay. For it to be a geography essay, you need to have the necessary components. All right, so let's take a look at what are some of the essential components that must be in your essay in order for it to be a geography essay. So we are going to deconstruct what is this burger that you are seeing in front of you. All right, so what I want you to take note of is this. When you do a geography essay, I have two possible recipes that you can follow. These recipes, you can choose based on what you prefer. So basically, what you see in recipe 1 and recipe 2, there are both buns, there are both patties, and then there's cheese. But what is different is that the number of cheese is different between recipe 1 and recipe 2. Either of these recipes are fine. It depends on what you prefer, and you can use any of these recipes. All right, so let's take a look at the first recipe and explore what is the structure here. All right, so what I want you to take note of is this. Basically, the top bun is your introduction. You're going to tell your audience basically whether you agree or disagree, and then what is the general outline of your argument. And then you will have to talk about the given factor. So based on the question that we saw just now, the given factor was distance from the sea. So you will need to talk about the factor that is mentioned in the question. And then you have two other patties. So you need to talk about two other factors in relation to the question. So for example, you can talk about altitude or latitude. Those are two other factors. So in total, you will need to have 3 body paragraphs. All right. So 3 different points, 3 beef patties. And then lastly, you will have your cheese and then you will have your bottom bun. So basically, the cheese is the evaluation and the bottom bun is the conclusion. So what you do in the conclusion is that you have to then prove your chosen stand is actually the most convincing. And then you will have to tell me why is it so that the other factors or the other points that were mentioned in your essay are not as important as the factor that you have chosen. All right, we will talk about this more on this when we go in depth into the different parts. All right, so now let's take a look at our second structure, which is what we have. Just now we have one cheese, right? Now you will have three different cheeses. So I know it shows two cheeses here, but I want you to take note that you should have 3 patties and 3 cheeses for your second recipe. All right, so this is the correct diagram over here. So I have 3 patties and 3 different cheeses. So the first part is the same. You have a top bun introduction. The bottom part is slightly different. You only have the bottom bun. But what is different is that for every patty that you have, you will then include a cheese. So this means that after every body paragraph, you are going to, within the body paragraph, you are going to say about why it is more important or less important. So you're going to evaluate in each body paragraph. But once again, don't worry, just take note of the different parts of the geography essay. We will talk about evaluation in a later part of the video. All right, so I have 2 recipes for you. Which one you prefer is based on your taste and preference. You can either leave the evaluation in the conclusion, or you would want to put the evaluation in each of the body paragraphs. Personally, I prefer the second recipe because it makes for a tastier burger. But once again, remember, you can use any of these recipes. All right, so I want you to take note of this. Just because your burger has a bun, has a patty, has some cheese, doesn't mean it's going to be a good burger. All right. For example, I'm pretty sure that if I were to put a McDonald's burger beside a Burger King burger side by side, the Burger King burger is definitely going to lose because the components are not very well made. So I want you to take note of this. If your different parts of your essay must be of quality, if not, they're going to turn into this pile of mush that you see over here. So we see a bun and we see a cheese, but take a look at this. This shows that the patty wasn't really well made, and what you get is this mess over here. All right, so your components must be of quality. So we are going to explore further how to make each component be of quality. All right, before you start writing your essay, before we dive into the different parts of the essay, what I want you to take note is this. You must start planning your essay first. All right, before you write, please plan out your essay. So I will see you in the next video, which will cover essay planning, because if you don't plan your essay, then you are planning to fail. If you fail to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So just take note of this. I will see you guys in the next video.